You want to know what some of my favorite types of animals are? Animals with long necks. The whole shebang, I tell ya. Ostriches, flamingos, giraffes, sauropod dinosaurs like Giraffatitan or Alamosaurus, the many aquatic plesiosaurs out there, this wacky creature known as Tanystropheus, and plenty more. And that appeal goes beyond just real-life creatures too, with stuff like the Zippleback from How to Train Your Dragon, Elastigirl, or even this kid from Sky High. Those extensive body parts between the head and body are so out there and different from us that they simply inspire the imagination. God, why do I have to make everything sound so philosophical? And no other robot from WALL-E manages to capture that appeal, that fun, that magic better than the long-necked robot. The long-necked robot is a WALL-E character who likely belongs to either by and large's maintenance class or human assistance class aboard the Axiom. They're a robot who I've been rather intrigued to cover, mostly for their goofy yet appealing design, which we should discuss right now. The long-necked robot is part of a family of by and large's robots who I have referred to as the Van Gogh lookalikes, all of whom share the same base as the famous paintbot Van Gogh himself, all having a similar, generally taller, narrow body shape that's reliant on hovering just above the ground to navigate. His closest relatives seem to be the tall curve-headed robot, who I've already covered, and the tall gray robot. Our long-necked friend has a slight bit of a hunchback going on, with a pair of vibrant blue tanks attached to his back by a white piece wrapping around them and these black tubes underneath. Maybe these are for storing the fuel he runs on, I'm not entirely sure. And underneath that is a series of creases and his BNL logo, plus this white ruffled section on his rear, the purpose of which I am also unaware of. On either side of his body is a gray tank, a pair of purplish royal blue stripes, along with a barcode and the name Van Gogh. Wait, what? What? But this guy can't be called Van Gogh? That name belongs to somebody else, obviously. This can't be right. What is the explanation for this? Well, here's what I think, and I've kinda said this before, but I'll say it again. I like to believe that both Pixar and by and large in this case just reused the base of Van Gogh here, made whatever tweaks they wanted, but neglected to change the name, hence the Van Gogh written on the side. It's an example of BNL avoiding the costs of making new parts, and an instance of animator Angus MacLane's modular bot building system at play. Resting on top of what are essentially his shoulders are a set of black handlebars, which will be more relevant to us later on. Also, much like Van Gogh, he appears to have a track going up his chest, which is likely what the base piece for his neck is supposed to be attached to and elevates on. This white piece holding his neck curves outward, has a black area down below, and has a crease across its middle. And this means we've finally reached the incredible attribute that he's been named after. It's about time we discuss his wonderful gimmick, that being his long neck.
But that was a long neck! I hate him. I hate him.
Unlike some other Van Gogh lookalikes, whose necks are comprised of a black box that slides out of the top of their torso, much like a Pez dispenser in a way, this guy has a neck that's made from a series of thinner, black, cylindrical, pipe-like hydraulic segments that slide out of each other, akin to the horizontal extensions of other robots' arms, or the sliding pieces of this little lightsaber toy here. This allows our boy's head to swivel and potentially turn a full 360 degrees, as well as extend much further upward than you might have expected. I find it quite awesome, especially since it looks a lot like a telescope. He might be able to lift his neck to a height that rivals even that of Brella. I mean, with a neck like that, he could probably tower over you if he wanted to. I mean, it's not Mamenchisaurus levels of ridiculousness, but it's a pretty novel mechanism to have. Longneck Boy here is a robot trying to be a giraffe, and if you can't find that cool as well, we can't be friends. Along with all that, he can retract his neck into his body like a defensive turtle, compacting into a tighter, more easy to store form. However, his neck can only swivel or go up and down. It doesn't seem to have the articulation to bend or flex, unlike how yours or mine can. But placed on top of that neck is his white head, which, I'm just gonna say it, it's shaped just like a hockey puck.
What are you looking at, you hockey puck?
On the front is his sunken-in vision screen displaying two cunning yellow eyes, a trait shared by him, Mo, and 4867. Now, it is worth acknowledging that there are rare individuals out there of this model that have black heads, black neck bases, and a pair of black tanks on their back. An interesting, if kind of mundane yet edgy variant of this character. Plus, they originally had blue eyes as seen in the trailer. Honestly, everything about this just looks so incredibly wrong to me. But thankfully, Pixar would change them to yellow just to help make every robot all the more unique. So wait, hang on here. You're trying to tell me that they changed that, but they couldn't be bothered to change the name on the side? Sorry, I'm still not over that. But on a lighter note, that was his design, my buddy Booze. Even with the reuse of the basis, it still stands out on its own for being so comedic and funky looking, making him very much the sauropod of the herd. His tall, slender, vertically positioned neck being at the front of this bulky lower body gives him an almost ostrich-like posture, only this guy can't peck you to death. You can also throw in a bit of Slug, Bobblehead, or Jack-in-the-Box in there too for good measure, with all of those having a slight resemblance to the character in question here. Now, you may have noticed I didn't mention this guy's job earlier. That was very intentional. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding him, and most other Van Gogh lookalikes for that matter, is what kind of purpose they were meant to serve on this ship. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do in many scenarios when you don't even have any limbs, which has led me and likely several others to speculate like mad as to what their function is. Considering the walker shape of his handlebars here, and this moment where a Van Gogh helps out an older lady at the end of the movie, maybe they act as assistants to those who have trouble walking. But that's a lot of robots going around for a job that's likely not in very high demand, so maybe that's just an extra feature for them. Perhaps they transport some kind of fluid stored inside of them from place to place, but that doesn't seem very efficient to me. Maybe they're concierges, waiters for a restaurant. Maybe they serve multiple different roles. That very odd neck of theirs also must serve some kind of purpose. Come on. Perhaps they use them during courtship to attract females during the mating season, with the males squaring up to one another, seeing whose neck is longer before duking it out. For here, we have the long-necked robot in its natural habitat. Okay, all jokes aside, Pixar likely didn't have any idea for this neck of his in mind, and just gave it to him because they thought it looked cool, which it does, mission accomplished in that regard. But does it aid him in whatever his job is in any way? Perhaps he uses it to look over crowds of people surrounding him, to monitor places like the Axiom's casino and alert a nearby steward if he spots someone trying to steal something.
Honestly, I love stealing things.
At this point, I'm kinda stumped here. There are so many possibilities for what job he may serve, that it's really difficult to pin down one that really seems concrete to me, though I guess it is kinda nice to just have it be left up to your own imagination. I'd love to hear your suggestions for ideas down below. As for where they can be found on screen, well, there's one passing Wally after leaving the elevator. There's one more, there's another, and another, and another. Okay, I think you get the point. These fellas are incredibly numerous and abundant, commonly found patrolling the hallways, going from somewhere to somewhere. Hysterically, one of them gets caught up in the robot pileup caused by our main protagonist, with many robots crashing into him, forcing his neck to pop up again and again.
Oh, I'm hurt! Oh, my neck! My back! My neck and my back!
Several of them stop at the big intersection to observe the caution warnings for Eve and Wally. There's one who tries to keep his distance from hands during the climax, nervously tucking his neck into his body, and another is found here staying out of the way for the main characters to pass through. And that leads us to, of course, the rogue robot. The reject long-necked robot is seen standing on the far end of the repair ward in Group 5A, closest to the diagnostics room, alongside 753, 75, and 947. He has a red boot attached to his left side, and a malfunction that I have always found incredibly charming and funny. He is often seen bouncing his head up and down by sucking in his neck and rapidly popping it back upwards, thus why I dubbed him Neck Popper when I was younger. This is such a fun usage of his stretchable neck. He is first seen from really far away once Wally enters the repair ward, unfortunately placed on the wrong side of the room here, but in a later shot, this gets corrected. When Wally observes his surroundings, you can see him in the distance, springing his head up and down like this little jumper toy I have here. He seemingly looks at Eve when she gets transported into the diagnostics room, a fun little detail, and he watches Wally as he runs by, standing tall, proper, and proud. He also stares at the blast from Eve's cannon, and realizes that he's been freed once the repair ward security goes down, now with the blue grabber robot accidentally behind him, another bizarre continuity error. He happily jumps from his spot, though now coming from the wrong side of the room, yet another continuity error. Also, did they change the opacity of his model here or something? Because if you look closely, he looks transparent like a ghost. Errors everywhere. Anyway, he quickly turns around to look at Wally, with 753 and the other robots crowding around him, blocking his view, so he has to stretch his neck to raise his head above the crowd. Kinda like how Mr. Potato Head couldn't see out the window, so he had to lift his eyes up back in the original Toy Story. He then charges into the diagnostics room, quickly turns around, and heads back towards the repair ward exit, as he steadily looks up towards his new master of Wally before making a run for it, darting out the repair ward entrance. Now on the loose at the back of the crowd of the rogue robots, he turns around the intersection corner and goes underneath everyone before abruptly coming to a screeching halt thanks to the stewards before him, now standing in the midst of the crowd with Defib, 3671, Fix-It, and the small red robot surrounding him. We get a profile shot of him looking around concerned, sticking out from the group, before Eve suddenly catches up with them, and he gets his mugshot taken. If you look closely here, you'll notice that the top piece of his neck is clipping into his face, making it look like he has a strange mouth. This glitch also occurs in the shot from the trailer, but would later get patched, thankfully. He looks over at Eve when she gets upset, and then as soon as Eve darts away, he circumvents the stewards alongside the tall gray robot before sneaking his way out of the scene, disappearing into the unseen areas of the Axiom, just like what most of the other rogue robots did, unfortunately. Despite that, I really like this guy. His behavior of building up pressure before releasing his neck is pretty unique and entertaining, and his design makes him a standout amongst the group. In a sea of robots that are usually just floating heads with arms attached to them, the robot that is anything but that becomes quite eye-catching, even from afar. And no, I'm not gonna make any of those kinds of jokes with this dude. You guys already got enough of that stuff from my Brella video. Or at least, enough for now. Anyways, we have quite a bit of outside the movie content to bring up for this guy. In the huge chart of robots in the RoboKit video, we can find this man lined up with the rest of his kin, giving us our only look at his full body image. Near the end of the short film Bernie, some of them can be found hanging about in the background, one of which is in the post-credits scene. In the constantly referenced animatic shot, which I believe that's what I'm going to be calling that from now on instead of previs shot, the camera in this scene lingers on him a bit more than in the final film, showing him running forward and shaking around a bit more while in a temporary pink coloration. And while I'm not entirely sure if this counts as the long-necked robot or not, in this Wally-themed Khan Academy lesson where you can create a series of your own robots, one of the heads that you can pick from looks eerily similar to the upper body of our boy himself, so that's pretty neat.
What? Wow! $100!
Not exactly the most sufficient amount of content ever, nor does it really give us a further insight into this guy's job or anything, but I'll take what I can get. You can tell a lot of the Van Gogh lookalikes kinda got the shaft in this category, but they still very much so left an impression on the fans, going off of the fan art made around them, such as this huge chart of robot drawings by Looney Tunes fan LHL, which I genuinely cannot stop looking at. No joke, they featured like nearly every last background robot in this. Even my forlorn little maroon robot made it in. I'm telling you, when I first found this, it absolutely made my day. But getting back on track, that, my friends, was the long-necked robot. Despite most of his design just being a Van Gogh redeco, and the fact that we don't exactly know what the purpose of his titular neck would have been, he was always someone I enjoyed and could easily identify as a kid, mostly for his zany appearance, so I'm actually surprised we don't have more stuff made around him. He's undoubtedly the most outlandish and memorable of the Van Gogh lookalikes, besides Van Gogh himself, of course. Duh, that goes without saying. He may not be anything truly spectacular, but he's a rogue robot that I undoubtedly appreciate. And once again, we've added another piece to the puzzle in my quest of reuniting these wonderful characters. All of these rogue robots, no matter how bizarre or relatively insignificant they may be, hold an incredibly special place in my heart. As petty and silly as this may sound, they've played a role in my life in a way that goes far beyond their small part in a film, where they're just comedic secondary characters or extras, which is something I will discuss more often in the future. So for that and all the reasons I just listed off, covering the long-necked robot has been a delight. They themselves are a delight, and you are too for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed what I had to offer, and I will see you all in the next one. Long live the long-necked robot.